let me tell you a little bit about Vaughn and our past is Vaughn and I were probably inseparable from the age of, I don't know, 6, 7. How old were you when you moved to Riverview? Third grade?
Seven. I was 7 years old.
So we're about 7. We became instant friends on the bus. He was a Minnesota Viking. Remember that day? Mm-hmm. He had a Minnesota Viking sticker on his thing, and I liked Minnesota Vikings, and that kind of bonded us. And then we're probably inseparable through middle school, till we could start, driving and chasing women and stuff like that. But so Vaughn and I, Vaughn had 4 siblings. I was an only child, so I loved going to Vaughn's house because that's where the action was. And his mom would whip my butt. Sometimes I got my butt whipped and they didn't because they were smart enough to know how to disperse and I wasn't. And I never will forget that night. We were up in the hallway playing football, like beanbag football, and just making a heck of a racket. And Miss Dotson yelled at us about 20 times, y'all cut it out. And we did. And they just laughed. Ben and Greg, they just laughed. We kept playing. And so she said, one more time. I mean, she gave us about 4 of those. One more time, I'm coming up there and whipping some butt. And I'm like, well, don't go whip me. I'm the neighborhood kid spending the night, And so all of a sudden, man, they heard the steps, and they obviously had heard them before. And she's unwinding a coat hanger all the way up them stairs, son. And they all hit a bedroom and locked the door. And I'm out in the hallway, and I catch 20 licks, and they didn't get nothing. And then they come out, they're just laughing at me. And but that's one of my favorite stories, and I deserved it. But anyway, we had good times, and so Vaughn, let me tell you a little bit about Vaughn right now. He's at Keller Williams. He still operates as a solo practitioner. And why was that funny? Anyway, that was uncomfortable. But he still operates as a solo guy. He did
64
units last year, over 13 million. He was their number one. They got 160 agents over there. He was the number one individual agent over there. But and it's it's amazing production.
Yeah.
I was telling Vaughn earlier, when I got to about 50 units on my own as a solo agent, I needed a body. I mean, I was about to lose my marriage. I was about to lose everything. I was so unorganized. It was just chaos. Vaughn does a good job of kind of keeping. He was always a little more organized than me, but he does an amazing job doing that. And he has kind of his own team. I mean, he has a closing coordinator that he subcontracts and things like that. But he's made it work for him, and that's why I tell us a lot of times. And you're going to hear this in his story. There's a couple underlying truths to success in this business, okay? And we'll talk about those later. But there's 100 ways to skin the cat and to be successful in real estate. The way I do it is not necessarily the way Stephen's going to do it and the way Vaughn's going to do it. We're going to do it differently because we're different, But, and you're going to hear some of that. So anyway, Vaughn, tell us a little bit about when you started. What year did you start?
It was 2001. I was 31 years old. I got into it because I really didn't have anything else to get into. I was getting older. My buddies were all getting married and having kids and making money, and I'm a late bloomer, so it just came late in life, and I was like, I got to do something. So my best friend growing up was John, and I decided to take a real estate course, and I got in and took it, and I'll never forget it. I started in 2001 and didn't know the difference between a home inspection and a home appraisal. I had absolutely no idea, and that's just kind of where it all started.
So that was in 2001.
Yep.
Tell us about kind of those early years, that first year or two. Tell me what that looked like.
It was great. I can tell this story. I tell it all the time. My father was a district attorney here for 30 years, and everywhere we went, they knew him, right? So I just figured I'd put a name tag on my door, make $100,000 a year, and it's just be great. Well, I found out starting out that most of the people that know you didn't want to do business with you. And a lot of, I'm sure it was me because I was an immature guy that was a late starter, but I went 9 months before I made my first sale. Literally 9 months. I would come in every morning and get the newspaper out and I didn't know what I was doing. And I started talking to John and started talking to Dan, and they were trying to kind of help me find my way. But literally, I don't know how I did it. I jokingly say this, but I sold 3 houses my first year. I made $9,500. At the time, the tax bracket was $10,000. I made less. I didn't have to file taxes my first year. I was going to my dad's house every Monday afternoon, borrowing money, and again, I made $9,500 my first year. But the thing that got me started, and I'll never forget it, because this is how I got my business started. If you want to know how I did well, John used to put me in open houses every Sunday, and I thought and then I'm y'all don't know me, but I'm a social introvert. I'm not naturally, like I see Bill and I see Tommy, like that show that Tommy does. I couldn't do that to save my life. I have so much fear about that, and so when I see people, I tend to go the other way. I'm really. So I used to go to those open houses and pray, literally pray to God, please no one show up, please no one show up. And then when they did, I would get such sweaty palms. I'm like, please don't ask me a question, please don't ask me a question. But John said something to me, and it took me a long time to process it, but he said, you got to fake it till you make it. And you hear that saying a lot, but in my case, I literally had to fake like I knew what I was doing when I got started.
That's interesting. So we got an introvert. We got a guy that went 9 months without selling a home. Only sold 3 his first year. So your second year, how did it go? Was it still kind of sluggish, or did you start picking up some things?
Yeah.
Tell me about the second year.
Well, I just started getting more and more comfortable being around in front of people. That's where it got to be. And then I can tell you, my second year I made $38,000. I don't know how many units I sold that year, but I felt good about myself. You know, I started feeling comfortable around people.
So you got a little confidence.
I did.
Was there ever a point during that first 24 months where you just wanted to say, maybe this isn't for me?
Every day.
Did you almost quit?
Yeah, I should have quit.
Why didn't you quit?
I don't know. I didn't have anything else.
You didn't have no plan B.
I didn't have anywhere to go.
I got you.
I didn't.
You.
And
so he wasn't a fast starter. Okay. What was your biggest fears now that you look back on it? Because I think sometimes it's easier to look back on things like that. What were your biggest fears or challenges that you had at the time?
Personally or professionally?
Yeah, I mean, I think they all kind of intertwine. I mean, what was kind of messing with you, you think, maybe holding you back a little bit early on?
I didn't know how to succeed. I didn't know.
Yeah.
The biggest fear was I didn't want to fail.
Right.
I didn't want to fail. I wanted to be something in life, and I didn't know what else to do. I mean,
was there ever kind of a breakthrough? You know, some people talk about having this epiphany.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where, man, this is the one day, man, where it just kind of, you know what? I know I can do this, and I know I can be good at this. I know I can make this a career. Was there ever that moment, or was it a combination of moments?
Yeah, I'd say there's not a. I mean, I can tell you a certain moment in my life, but it happened years later, and I'll get to that. But I would say, I think after the third year, I remember making the third year, I made $51,000. I thought, well, this.
So you were progressing every year.
Yeah. I was getting the hang of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it was kind of a slow, steady rise.
Absolutely. Every year since I've started, I've made
more money than the year before. Mm-hmm. That's unbelievable because you went through a recession too.
Mm-hmm.
Did you, like, some people are great on the phones. So I wasn't. I was an open house guy. That's where I tried to get all my business. Today, you don't do the business you do without doing some form of prospecting. Mm-hmm. What's your angle on prospecting?
There's a lot of people that do different things, and you'll hear whatever your niche is. Some people can door knock. I can't door knock. Some people can pick up the phone and call. I can't call. I'm passive aggressive. So what I like to do, I'm mailers. I'm sending out mailers. So what I started, when I started doing those open houses, the first thing I remembered learning from you was always get their names and numbers and email addresses. Always. That's the first thing. And I'll tell you,
key point.
And here's the other thing too. This is the thing. I don't know within 2 hours of the time you get out of your open house, within 2 hours, it's got to be within 2 hours. You need to go home. I don't know now that you've got iPads and all that stuff. You need to send them a thank you email. Hey, thank you for coming by. I really do appreciate it. I mean, I do that today. If I'm doing an open house within 2 hours, if I get thank you. And then what I do is I do a handwritten letter always. So the next day I send a handwritten letter. So in 2 days after they've met me, they're going to get a letter in the mail, and it's handwritten, it's not typed. When I first started thinking, I'm thinking, God, it's so informal, it doesn't look professional, but it's just the opposite. You've actually spoken, taken time to write down the stuff and send it to them. And then now that they're on my mailing list, I've got a little database that I send out. I spend a lot of money on postage every year, lots of money, but it pays off. And then I put them on my little postcard list. And I wish I'd brought some, but every month it changes, different, depending, 4th of July, I do a flag, Thanksgiving, the turkey. But anyway, so within 2 days after I mailed the letter, another 2 days, I'm sending out the postcard. So at this point, I've hit them 4 times in the first 4 or 5 days. And then, again, I'm passive aggressive. I probably should pick up the phone and call them. But what I'll do is just every 30 days, and it's like a religion to me, every 30 days, I'm sending out those postcards. Every 30 days.
Are those cards already made up for you at the beginning of the year?
No. I ordered them, and I used to do it locally from a guy here, and it was great, and I love doing the mom and pop things, but I've just started using one of those.
National
company.
company.
And I don't mind, Vista Print.
Yeah. Vista.
They pump them out.
And there's a lot of great companies that do that, but it's just, it's a system now, right?
It is.
It's going to happen.
Yep.
Period, in the story.
Law of averages, yep.
Yeah. So let's go back to a little bit in those early years. Year 3, year 4, it's getting a little better every year. Was all that business pretty much new business?
It was, absolutely.
When does it become easier for an agent, in your opinion, to, like, all of a sudden people are contacting you going, hey man, come list me, come show me a home?
I call that free money when it comes out of nowhere. About the 5th or 6th year, usually people, about the 4th or 5th year is when they want to sell and resell, and that's a blessing because you'll get that phone, because you're always churning to make the hard deal, right? Everything's hard, and then you get that phone call, hey, we sold a house from you for a couple of years ago, we're ready to sell and buy again, and you're like, whew. But I'll tell you that part comes because you're staying in contact with them. And
Did you try to do that from day one?
No. No. I say I didn't, but I was learning from you. I was taking those things as open houses, writing letters and thinking. So I don't know if I may have been doing it. I don't think I ever thought it would come to fruition. But when you start getting those, I call it free money calls, you're like, oh man, it's because, again, every deal, especially now, it's so hard. So when you get that phone call.
Right.
It's nice.
Did you notice as you started working those few years, were you doing a pretty good job for your clients? Were you starting to get a few little referrals out of the people you were working?
Yeah. And I still tell the story. I was, because those people I meet at open houses, and I met a guy several years ago I ran into over at this pharmacy next door, and he was on my mailing list. And he said, hey, Vaughn, and he knew me and I didn't know him. I'm ready to sell, and he ended up selling in my house. So it was just one of those things where I took the time of calling him that day, putting him on my mailer. And
so you'd forgotten about him, but he was still in your system.
Yeah. Because what happens is because you're mailing out so much, but some people that take, when you get that piece of mail, and just makes them feel good. Absolutely.
Well, you're putting your name in front of them every month.
Absolutely.
Did you, one of the questions I was going to ask, today, now let's fast forward it to today.
Okay.
What does your day look? Do you have a routine?
Yeah, like clockwork.
Tell us about your routine.
I'm usually up by 6 or 6:30 in the morning. I do my reading in the mornings. I'll drink my coffee. My wife.
What type of reading?
I read the Bible.
Okay.
And I'll tell you about that in just a minute. But I'm. I was going to get kind of emotional, but my life changed when I found Jesus Christ.
That's awesome.
I've always gone to church and I've always known him. But about 6 or 7 years ago, I'm a runner. I run every morning. And my wife and I, we'd been dating for a long time, and we separated. And I was living in a little duplex my father owned over on Battleground. And again, even back then, I've always had systems. I get up and run. I get up and do my push-ups and sit-ups. That's how I get started in the mornings. And I sprained an MCL in my left knee, and I couldn't run. I couldn't run, and I couldn't sell real estate. My wife and I were separated. At that time, my girlfriend were separated. And I found the Bible. And
so you were down and out, right?
God broke me. He broke me. And that's when it all changed. I'll tell you, my 2 biggest things in my professional career is finding Jesus Christ. And the second thing was I ran into a girl named Christine Hensley. Because when I started making a little bit of money, I'll just make it fast. My third year I made $51,000. My fourth year I made $89,000. My fifth year in real estate I made $100,000, and I thought, man, this is it. I am it. And I was working at a different real estate firm, and I remember the first year I was at like 4.7 million. I went 5.2 million, and then I thought, well, this is it. I'm it. And then someone convinced me to try a different real estate firm, and when I went over there, they said, hey, there's a girl that you need to get in contact with. She's a transaction coordinator. I'm like, and at the time, I think I was paying her $250 per contract. And the first two, I micromanaged my money because I never had any money. So I was following her, just basically following her, right? And I thought, well, I don't need her. I don't. But my wife said something to me, and she goes, you need to let go of the little money to make the big money. And so when I started using her regularly, and again, I can't encourage you all to start immediately because until you start getting the volume, you just don't need them.
Hey, they got one built in here.
That's incredible. Because if I'd have had that sooner, I'd probably been here.
What was the benefit of having a transaction coordinator?
Oh my gosh! Because in our business, I call them kills. You know, you get up every morning, you go out for the kill, and once you get the kill, you usually have to. You know, I'm not a hunter, but they say you have to clean it and all that, right? Well, the transaction coordinator, she cleans it. So you kill it, and then you give it to her, and you go find something
Then you
else.
go out and kill some more.
And I'll say this: you know the difference between a good real estate agent and a great real estate agent? A good agent will admire his kill. A great one will say, what's next? And once I figured that out, because again, as soon as I started using Christine, I went from 5.2 to 9.7. I went from 5.2 2 years later to over 10 million. I went 10.2. The third year, I went to 11.2. Every year since then, I have just...
You figured out the leverage of people. Leverage.
Well, the time. You know,
Well, that's what I'm saying. You leveraged.
Oh, yeah.
Your time was worth a lot more going for the kill.
Yes.
Than it was doing work you could pay somebody to do at a lot less price of what your time was worth.
It took me. I'm not a smart guy, and here's what I will jokingly say, and I mean it seriously though. I'm not good looking. I'm not smart.
You're pretty handsome.
I'm not good looking. I'm not smart. I don't have family money. I don't have better systems. Some people have better, but no one's going to outwork me. I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to outwork you because I enjoy the work now. I like the money. I like the life.
Ding, ding, ding.
What it offers me.
Work. Hey, let's go back to your day.
Okay.
So, you spend some time with God.
Yes.
Right? You go, you wake up, you spend time with God, kind of get your mind right, getting that great spirit of probably thankfulness and gratitude.
Absolutely.
And then you do you work on yourself.
Yes.
You do your push-ups, you do your sit-ups, you go for a jog.
Yep.
Or
Yeah.
run.
I'm a runner.
Right.
I'm still a runner. I don't run as much as I
He's
used
been
to.
running forever.
But what I do is I usually try to get to the office by 10. If you're there at 10, 5 minutes, 5 after, I'm hitting that door around 10. And then I'll usually follow up from the day before. Like for example, I told John today I've got a few more contracts that I need to get in the system for the end of the month for the numbers. And then after that, I start from 11 to 3 that's my money time. That's when I make my money. And so I prospect. That's when I prospect, and that's when I'm trying to find new business. I'm again, I eat breakfast late, so I don't eat lunch until 3 or 3:30 usually. And then if I'm showing houses on the weekdays, at the evenings, or on the weekends, that's...
So you kind of got it set up where you have your morning routine.
Yeah.
And then for that first hour of the day, you're just kind of working on wrapping up things.
Putting fires out.
Kind of a little busy work,
Yep.
putting fires out, making your calls you need to make. Then from 11 to 3 is kind of your hour of power, but it's really like 4 hours. You're working on your mailers, you're maybe getting back, prospecting, working on your leads, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And then tell them what you do at 3:30.
That's when I usually, after I come back from...
I like this actually.
No, I did it I started taking naps. And,
In his office, about 40 minutes.
It's every bit of 40. I'll shut my little blinds. I'll turn my little fan on to keep the noise on, and I put a little sign out on my door that says "Focus time, do not disturb," and everyone in the office knows that's Vaughn's nap time. But I'll tell you something. It's I swear by it now. It's incredible. It's just,
So you pop back up about 4.
Yep.
What do you do the rest of the day?
Again,
That's when you're usually working appointments or...
depending on if I'm showing house in the afternoon, and then again, that's just when I try to set up for either the weekdays or the weekends. And then usually I'm home by, depending on how many I show, at 7:30 or 8. I'll eat a late dinner. I usually eat dinner about 8:30. Around 9, I take my sleeping pills. I take 2 little generic Benadryls. And by 10 o'clock, I'm out.
Yeah.
And
you do it again.
but I'm a morning person. See, I just, if someone told me that I was going to stay up tonight till 1 or 2 o'clock, I don't know if I physically could do it.
So when do you feel like you're at your best during the day? When do you feel like, hey, this is my peak? This is when Vaughn is at his best.
Oh,
what hour of the day?
11 to 3.
Which happens to be
that's when I make my money.
the time when he's making those calls. So there's nothing real, there's no magic pill you're really giving us. It's consistent, persistent, consistent, day in, day out, right? Does your days pretty much follow that pattern every day of the year?
Every day. There's not too many days that don't look like the same the day before.
You know, I read this the other day. You show me a man who has a routine, I'll show you an ambitious individual. And what they meant is people that are successful, they have a routine, and it's not sexy. It is. I think it is sexy to have a routine. It's like, hey, man.
Well, I think it's abnormal if you don't.
Yeah.
Because I see people the way they.
And real estate offices are full of them. You know, traditional offices, you have, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, where if it's Coldwell Banker, by Parks, Exit, you know, any company, anywhere, any traditional office, you're going to walk in there most days, right? And there's going to be about 20% of the people in there taking action that are consistent.
Yeah, and you know, I tell this story a lot too, especially the newer agents when I talk to them, because John used to have me in open house every Sunday. I mean, I tell you, for the first 3 or 4 of my years, I would bet you, I'm not sure how many Sundays there are, but other than 1 or 2 every year. But so we go to these sales meetings on occasion. I don't go as often as I should, but they'll complain that they're not doing business and things like that. And I'm like, well, did you know an open house on Sunday? Well, no. Well, I said, well, I can tell you this, in 16 years of selling real estate, I have never, ever sold a house on a Sunday afternoon on my own couch. No one's called, hey, saw a house, come right up.
Come right up.
And here, I'll tell you something too, and I can be honest with you about this. Every Sunday morning, before I go to church, I'll cuss under my breath about having to do an open house, right? Like, I'd love to have a Sunday afternoon off. But once you get there, it's not bad.
How do you have a certain trick or tool to
Oh
get
yeah,
people to
I'm glad
sign
you asked
in?
that. Yeah, because I'll tell you, I learned, because again, after a while, you just start engaging with them. So here's my little tidbit, and this is really, really good, especially to the newer agents. When you see someone pull up at your open house, for example, if you see a guy with a big truck or a hat with a tent, well, that's right there. That's your invitation. Hey, man, that's a good-looking truck. What kind of gas mileage you get, right? And usually the women, when they're bringing their children, right, the women are always most offensive, right? So what I do is, this is my little line. When I see 2 children come up, I'm like, oh, look here, you brought the security guys with you. And it just kind of breaks the ice, because once they find out you're with them instead of against them, it's like a little flower, it just blossoms. And you can almost see it right there.
When you acknowledge somebody's children, I can tell you this from having children, they go up in your book real quick. All of a sudden you like these people, you know, because we all have kids. They're so special to us. So when somebody else acknowledges them, all of a sudden you're a good dude.
Yeah, and I tell you, that's the...
So you rapport build. You're not there going, are you there going, hey, this is 2,500 square feet, it's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths.
No.
Hey, come right in here, come right in here, come right in here.
No.
Do you kind of give them space and just
I always do, yeah.
You're rapport building.
Yeah.
What's the chances of them actually buying that house that day?
I don't know the percentages, but I know this. I know as a person, like when I go to a car lot, if someone approaches me, I'm not comfortable with that, right?
All right.
I
You
just
got your guard up.
let me, and so that's what I always try to be conscious of that when someone comes in my, because usually you'll see some of those realtors just falling right behind like they're dropping crumbs. I'm not that guy.
But you get the fact, you don't wake up that morning thinking, I'm going to sell this home today at open house.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking, hey, I want to meet. I hope about 10 people come through because I know I'm going to connect with a couple of them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you get their information?
Hey, if you guys don't mind, I'd like to send you a thank you. Just something, it's just something innocent. Hey, y'all mind? The sellers might be interested in seeing if I've had any showings or people coming through. Just little tidbits. But I've done it so long now, I'm not even sure. But it's not confrontational.
But have you usually done that after you built the rapport a little bit?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You don't say, hey, come in, please, folks. Please sign in right here, or do you kind of build the rapport and say, hey, if you don't mind, guys, y'all give me the information, prove to my broker, or prove to my seller I even had this open house.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something too. The thing is, I think I say more than any of them. It's like, I'd like to send you a thank you letter, and I'll tell you something, man. That means a ton, just a ton. Once you start making that connection.
Are people ever weird about it?
They are.
Yeah. And how do you deal with that?
I just, it's just numbers to me, right? It's numbers. If you got 10 folks, I'll give you a great example. A couple last fall, I was doing this open house, and a guy walks in. He's got his house listed. He's disenfranchised with his agent, He's wanting to sell and wanting to buy, so I'm spending time with them, right? So these other couples are coming in, and that's when you start losing. I was like, oh gosh, because, well, I saw an older couple just walk
He was
through.
kind of monopolizing your time.
He was.
Okay.
And he was. And so this little older couple, they were in there for a few minutes, and as they were walking out, they said, thanks for letting us come by. I said, hey, do you mind signing my list, right? Well, I would have bet you my next commission check, the people I were engaged with for the last 15 minutes were going to buy something from me, and they didn't. Come to find out, this little couple that I sent that same little thank you within a couple hours, they called me the next day. I sold them a $300,000 house, and
That's awesome.
yeah.
It's fun. It's funny to go back and look at where some of your deals came from,
Absolutely.
and then you'll see a chain of deals come from those deals.
Yep.
You know, so man, that's awesome, dude. Well, kind of what you shared with us has, I think, been incredible. And it's always good to hear it from another voice. And there's always another way. I mean, he does it different than I did it, and you're going to do it a little different than I did it, and you're going to do it a little different than he does it. But I think the two key takeaways that I have so far are work ethic and consistent prospecting. Work ethic and consistent prospecting. My last thing, if you could go back, let me ask it this way: what advice would you give to a new agent coming in? If you could go back and learn from how you did it, what's kind of the number one thing you would tell them? Or one or two things?
No, I tell you, I was fortunate and blessed that I had John and Dan Elam. I didn't know anything, and so I would tell you, don't be scared to ask somebody. I mean, really, because I'm prideful, right? And I didn't want anybody to think that I didn't know any better, or I should know this. Even now, I'll pick up the
And
phone.
guys, that's a little harder in a traditional office where everybody's kind of their own salesperson, you know, and you're not a part of the team. It's hard sometimes because you're kind of in there on this island, and everybody's your competitor, and you're intimidated, and you're young, and you're sometimes you get really scared to even go ask questions.
I was. And then sometimes you feel like you're asking too many questions. I felt like I was but I'll never forget this story. I tell it all the time. This is where my life started, and this is where it is. I remember John taking me to a hockey game one night, and we were sitting there, and we had a beer, and I had a question. And I'll never forget it. I asked you, I said, John, I said, no, never mind. I said, I'll ask you that. I don't mean to bother. And you said, ask me anytime. You said, I do this 24/7. I eat it, I breathe it, and I sleep it. And that's where I'm at now. You know, I enjoy people asking me questions because if I can help them, because I was helped. I mean, I tell you.
You always try to pay it forward.
Man.
Vaughn helped me early on. I've told you the story. I've told you a story about when I used to go. I didn't have any money to advertise. I've been in the business about a year. And so we would go get those real estate books out of the Kroger, Shoney's, wherever they kept them. And I would send Vaughn in. What did I have to give you? Case of beer? 12 pack. You're a cheap date.
I was.
I give Vaughn a 12 pack. He'd go with me. I'd make him run in and grab the magazines. He'd bring them out to the car. We would have this little neon, crude little, because before computers made everything look nice, you know, little starter home thing, you know, Salem clothes. They have a little picture of a black and white house, and it said, pick your lot, pick your plan. $572 a month, $1,500 get you in with work equity, give me a call, you know. And we would stick those in those, and so when the books would open, those things would just fall out. So 1 month, I did it for about 2 or 3 months. In 1 month, I got 4 deals off that ad because those were starter home people, and those were like the one kind of client base I wasn't intimidated by. But Vaughn was very important in that because I didn't have the gumption. I kept thinking the guy that owned the book was going to call me. And he, thank God he never did, but then I could afford to do an ad.
Just find your niche. There's a guy named Brian Clark in our office. When he got started, he came out of the gate hot, and I was like, I want to know what he's doing because I always want to know what people are doing, how well they're doing, and I want to say, well, what's he doing? Well, he was door knocking, right? And some people that can do that you can do great at that. And so I asked Brian. I said, Brian, how do you do it? And he's like, well, I was an undercover detective for 15 years. It's the same job. It just pays more, right?
Yeah.
And I'll just never forget that because let me tell you what. This was just 2 summers ago. I'm started making I feel good about myself personally and professionally. And so I'm like, if he can do it, I'm going to do it. So I ordered these 1,500 door hanger flyers. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make some extra money, right? So I thought, where should I start? Forest Point over there, it's got like 30 houses. I figured I can do this, right? I'll tell you guys, I got out of that car with those flyers and I had so much anxiety. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I'm now 14 years in the business. Like, I shouldn't be feeling this. I go up to the very first store. So, in fact, if y'all ever go in Forest Point, the first door gets up there and says no soliciting. I say, yes. Next door, please. So all I can tell you is find your niche. Some people can cold call, some people can door knock, and some people can write letters. And God bless me, that was my gift, and I'm pretty good with a pen.
That's awesome, dude. Let's give him a hand.